Welcome back to Gruber Motor Company. I'm Pete Gruber,
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning and welcome to the Gruber Morning Show.
and we are here to entertain you with all things related to EV, sustainable energy, and entertaining questions. The picture behind us was taken in Tuscany a few years ago, and you can see we've got an old school gentleman there reading a newspaper. No laptops, no cell phone visible there, enjoying his espresso and, a wonderful morning in Tuscany. So we thought we would create that as a backdrop and create that aura in our podcast this morning. And I hope you guys enjoy our pictures. Let us know if there's any particular picture you'd like to see instead. With your questions, again, let us know where you're from, who you are, of course, and we'll do our best to entertain all the questions that come in. Today's podcast is our normal EV podcast, which is broader issues. Yesterday we had the Roadster Roundtable, Tesla Roadster Roundtable podcast, and we tried to confine that to more Tesla Roadster questions. But today we're open to all EV questions. We're specialists in Tesla, so don't ask us questions we can't answer. We'll be embarrassed. All right, so the first news item that I have is we're starting with a recall for the Tesla Semi. It's only been out a few months, but it has the dubious honor of issuing its first recall, and it's due to a part that is not made by Tesla. And this often happens. We blame the manufacturers of these EVs, and they use a lot of other OEM products. This particular vendor that created the problem was Bendix, and my God, they've been around well into the last century. It was found that the electronic parking brake module could fail to engage due to an air leak within the unit, and it leaves the driver unaware that it isn't activated, possibly leading to rollaway incidents when the driver releases the service brake. Fortunately, only 35 vehicles were affected, and it is being resolved. And if you think about it, the last recall that we were aware of with Ford was only, 18 Ford F-150s. So these manufacturers are at least not getting any of these recalls that are, massive, where entire populations of cars have to come back to service centers.
Well, and for Tesla, it's probably good news that the recall didn't start based on one of their Teslas in the parking lot catching fire.
Good point, yeah. Yeah, so this one we can blame on Bendix. It turns out that this part affected a total of 836 units that had this Bendix part in it, non-Tesla, of course. And so I guess Bendix discovered it in early February, and after an investigation, they notified the companies that were using this part, and it is being resolved currently.
It looks like the Tesla semis that were manufactured starting in about mid-March are good, and so they're not a part of the recall. One thing I do wonder is, does this mean that there were only about 35 or so Tesla semis that were manufactured and put out in the first couple of months?
Well, that's what this article actually says. It says that Tesla started deliveries of the Tesla Semi in December of 2022, and they delivered an initial batch of 36. Not 35, to Pepsi and Frito-Lay. So one must have escaped or not been affected. But, again, thank goodness it wasn't a huge, massive recall, and it's, something that's this small is easily manageable for these EV manufacturers.
Yes, most definitely.
All right. Please, again, give us your questions, and we're streaming on a number of different platforms. Let us know where you're coming in from, and we'll do our best to entertain any questions that you may have.
For our TikTok audience as well, we do understand that you're still going to see that Pete and myself in front of a green screen. We're still working with the manufacturer of the software restreaming that we use. TikTok has to go on a different platform at this point, and we look forward to the day when we can get everyone on the same platform. Everyone can see all the same pictures.
And we hope you guys are enjoying all of our new equipment here. We've got new microphones, we've got new headphones, we've got a new soundboard, we're using software in a different way when we're doing a Zoom call and have a guest. And we're aiming to improve our production of these podcasts. So I've got another item here for you guys. Newsweek, a print magazine that's been around well into the last century, they published an annual World's Greatest Disruptor list for the automotive industry. And of course, everyone expected, Elon's going to be at the top of the list.
Sure.
Surprisingly, he wasn't even mentioned. They left out both Tesla and Elon Musk. Now, let me read you some of the categories and help us understand why they would have left out the largest EV manufacturer on the planet. So, Visionary of the Year award went to Oliver Zipse, the chairman of the board of BMW. All right, Visionary of the Year. Yeah, that's kind of a subjective term,
Well, yeah.
All right. The next one, Executive of the Year award. Well, Akio Toyoda, chairman of the board of Toyota Motor Corporation. All right, so maybe he did some great executive decisions that year, and they felt that Elon wasn't quite as executive, perhaps.
Perhaps. I mean, I did read a little bit of the article, and for Mr. Toyota, they're talking about him being able to make the models more relevant, especially in light of all the disruption that occurred because of the pandemic. Maybe he's getting the management award for managing the pandemic well.
Mm-hmm. And of course, this is a company that's still thinking about a different type of technology than EVs.
Definitely true. They're looking at hybrids, and they're looking at hydrogen cars a lot more than they're looking at EVs, although they do talk about the fact that they have at least one EV vehicle that's on their list as well.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys ever see that they're putting solar panels on a Prius?
No, I did not see that.
For the plug-in hybrid. Yep, they're going to be doing solar charging for the new Prius Prime.
Okay, so they get an A for effort in that category then. Yeah.
There you go.
Absolutely.
So the next award was Designer of the Year award. Now, of course, if it was Tesla, that would have been Franz von Holzhausen and his team, but this is a Luke Dankerwolke. He's chief executive or chief creative officer with Hyundai Motor Corp. And Hyundai's doing some great things, so I could see that being a legitimate award. Then we've got Research and Development Team of the Year award. Again, BMW pops up there. Now, that's twice they've popped up on this list of 10. And one might think carefully about how much advertising BMW does with this magazine.
Also, BMW is getting this award based on the hydrogen technology that they're doing research and development on, not on electric vehicle technology. I was a little surprised about that.
Definitely. Now, Powertrain of the Year award, Lucid Motors. I think that's a reasonable award, based on the fact that they came out with a Tesla Plaid killer, and they have some advanced drivetrain technologies that they've been offering. So that seems like a legitimate award going to Lucid Motors.
And when we talked to Sandy Monroe this last week, he had announced that they were doing a Lucid teardown, talked about what they had already done on the motor for that, and said it is an engineering marvel. So I'm not surprised at all on that one.
We've got a couple of people coming in that we need to give some shout-outs to. We've got LinkedIn, Amdo Lopsang Lama, Nepal Electric Vehicle Industry is the company that he's with apparently. And then we have a YouTube comment coming in from Aker MMM. Greetings from Amsterdam. It's kind of interesting that we have a visitor from Amsterdam this morning, because one of the background pictures that we just changed this morning was in Amsterdam. It was right on the canal there with some bicycles and, of course, flowers everywhere. And, that would have been a great picture to have up there. But instead, we went with Tuscany. So we need some Italians up there. Any of you from Tuscany, send us your information and we'll give you a shout out.
And we certainly do love seeing you guys coming in from all over the world. That warms our hearts.
So the next award, Marketing of the Year award, Genesis. All right. Marketing, of course, sales and,
sure.
Innovation. I can understand that. But this one just floored me. Now get this. Sustainability of the Year award, Lamborghini. Sustainability. They don't have an EV yet. And they're going to make a hybrid to start with. that one just blew me away. Now, that one definitely has Tesla and has, Elon all over it. So I'm not sure what Newsweek was using to collect data here, but that one is very confusing to me, at least. What do you guys think?
You know, I'll let these guys talk in just a second. I wanted to jump in because I definitely, I feel like Newsweek has their own political agenda here. Newsweek is known as being a progressive and kind of left-leaning magazine, and the good, highly respected news magazine. At the same time, they seem to have bought into the idea that battery electric vehicles just aren't green enough yet. And a lot of these awards seem to come to companies that were doing alternative energy that was not battery, such as hybrid or such as hydrogen. And they, I felt like with a couple of exceptions on this list, they specifically did not want to award electric vehicle innovation for anybody. All of the innovations that they mentioned in the article, even the non-electric ones, seem like legitimate innovations that have the potential of disrupting. Also, though, those innovations were largely built on the types of innovations that Tesla's been doing now for 15 years.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
And this is only the second year that they've had these awards.
So, yeah, we've got 10 different awards here. We've got a couple to go yet, and Tesla isn't mentioned anywhere here. After sustainability being handed to Lamborghini, the Technology of the Year award goes to Ford. Maybe they were impressed with the their ability to pivot to the F-150 Lightning, and how popular that vehicle was. I would love to see an expansion on each of these categories and their justifications. And in this particular article, it is not available to us, but I'm sure that they've probably given some justifications to this, and I'm definitely going to look for that after this podcast. And then the final one was Legacy of Disruption Award, and that was Torsten Müller-Ottwies, CEO of Rolls-Royce. Well, that one confuses me too.
That one I found out a little bit more about. This gentleman turned around Rolls-Royce, so the Phantom, there are two lines of vehicles. I know the Phantom is one of them, and moving Rolls-Royce into the electrified space as an electrified ultra luxury vehicle. They have a new model that's going to be coming out within another year or two, and they're looking to go all battery electric vehicles by 2030. That's what this award is for.
Okay. Well, then that might make sense. This article continues. It says, these auto disruptors are changing not just the way we drive, but the way we live. And this was according to Nancy Cooper, global editor-in-chief of Newsweek. Most of us spend a lot of time in our cars, she says. Our honorees are making cars more sustainable, safer, more accessible, more comfortable, and even more interactive. Again, that describes Tesla. But, some people have accused me of being a Tesla fanboy. And if you remember in that last video we did, somebody finally pointed out, no, he's not a fanboy. He just has some great facts,
Sure.
And I think you have to be realistic in this space, but there's so many facts that you just simply can't ignore. It was like Joe Biden last year when he said he gave all the credit to GM leading the EV charge. And I thought, what the heck was his scriptwriter smoking that morning, And why didn't Joe realize this is a colossal mistake? Because Elon had been at the White House. I'm sure
Right.
Joe knows who Elon is.
I'm sure he does.
He's aware of what Tesla is doing to the economy, the global economy, actually. So it is confusing, and they do go on, though. They say, ironically, Tesla has won numerous awards and recognitions globally for its focus on sustainability, safety, and accessibility. And during Investor Day, they even spoke about how they are going to continue to reduce global carbon emissions, and that, of course, is one of their primary goals.
Well, we even spoke just after Investor Day on the safety of the Model Y and how the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety did some tests on safety of rear seat passengers, and the Model Y was only one of 3 small SUV or crossover type vehicles out of 15 models that they tested that had an even acceptable rate of safety. So Tesla is a very safe vehicle, and yet they're not getting any of these awards.
Yeah. And of course, the impact of Tesla's changes are being felt globally, felt worldwide, brought one of the biggest disruptions in history to the planet.
Yes.
Well, I think it's pretty funny that the award for sustainability in an automotive category arguably wouldn't exist if not for Tesla.
Good point, Richard.
And yet we have Lamborghini receiving the award when they're not, they could have been, awarded this for committing to switch, right? Despite their brand, despite their reputation. But everybody else is doing that too.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I have one thing for you guys. I'll pull up right now for the audience. Let me put this back up on the laptop view. So here's a little reason why I think they're getting the award. It says at the other end of the pipeline, there are 2 trigenerational plants that produce electricity, heating, and cooling via closed systems. But basically, if you skip down, it says the company will reduce its carbon footprint by 80%.
Okay.
So they're using biomethane, apparently. And they have a bunch of fields around their manufacturing facilities that are piping this in. So they're getting rid of natural gas and reducing their carbon footprint by 80%, which is the biggest out of any company. Nobody's dropping their percent that much. I think that's why they're getting the award.
Fair enough. Okay.
That's very fair. I wonder how many herds of cattle they have around there
Biomethane.
for biomethane.
Well, and I'm not going to go on the rant that I did a couple of podcasts ago where we talked about Lamborghinis dipping their toes in the water by creating a hybrid Lamborghini. And it just, again, flies in the face of logic. The whole goal here is, see, I'm about to go on the rant. All right, I'm gonna continue with it then.
Okay, go ahead and continue. Yeah.
The whole goal here is to go emission free. It's to get rid of fossil fuel burners. It's not to create more of them or to create more complexity in their vehicles. They have a long tradition of being one of the world's leaders in sports cars. Those of us in the exotic car space totally respect Lamborghini. Ferrari, in my mind, even though I owned one, is a close second. Lamborghini was really, I think, the over-the-top hypercar. And for them to now head in a direction of hybrids, and worse yet, a Lamborghini with back seats is just a total violation of their charter and what people expect from Lamborghini. So as I was saying, Stefan Winkelmann is the CEO of Lamborghini. We would love to have you on our podcast. We'd love to have you talk about why you guys are doing this and who you guys were listening to when this was morphed into an idea and into a design strategy. So,
most definitely. Congratulations to all the companies that did receive these awards. While we might not understand the reason for receiving them, we know that there would have been good, solid criteria of some sort put out there, and that these companies are striving to make a difference in the automotive world. I do happen to think that the majority of them are standing on the innovations of one Tesla Motor Company. I do like seeing how the needle is moving in the entire industry as a result, though.
good point.
On YouTube, Alex Hearn has commented to us and says, "Hey guys, I have really enjoyed your videos. Hello from UK." Thank you, Alex. Welcome to the show this morning.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Thomas Curtis is joining us again. Kia ora from New Zealand. Love your work. Kia ora, Thomas. For those of you who are not from New Zealand, that is a greeting just like us saying hello or have a good morning. And then Ocker MMM from YouTube has talked about it, a comment for us as well. He says, often awards are for sale to the highest bidder, just like a Google top listing.
Wow.
Pre-show, I don't remember if it was you, Aaron, or if it was you, Richard, that were talking about sometimes awards just get bought.
Well, I just realized that my screen here is goofing up on me, but another news item. Apparently, they took a Tesla Model S Plaid, on the German Autobahn. And the it was a 2023. There's a YouTube video, actually. We haven't pulled it up yet. And it was on the Autobahn last month to show how quick and fast the car is when given freedom. I like the way that they phrased that. The German Autobahn, by the way, which translates into an autotrack, the world's longest highway network, stretching 8,197 miles. And it actually has portions, not all of them, that are unlimited speed. Can you guys pop up a picture of my favorite sign when I'm in Germany? When you're on the Autobahn, first of all, you have highly disciplined drivers. I mean, we're talking about drivers that do not get distracted, that follow the rules, that do not hog the left lane. They are exquisite drivers. That sign, when you see that, that means that you can bury that accelerator if you're brave enough, and there are no limits to the speed that you can attain. The only problem that I've had is my performance cars are here in the U.S., and it's too expensive to take them over there when we go visit my relatives.
Okay.
So we usually end up with a anemic rental car. But I got to admit, one year we had a Volkswagen station wagon, turbo diesel. And I actually got that thing up over 145 miles on the Autobahn.
Wow.
Of course, things are whizzing by you rapidly, and it was fascinating. So what they did was, with this Plaid, they took it on the Autobahn, and it accelerated to a maximum speed of 166 miles per hour, or 267 kilometers. But they apparently cork this car. So if you pay a little extra, you can actually uncork the car, and now it's good for 200 miles. And this particular car was not, so they limited it to 166 miles. And again, they were saying that the average speed on the Autobahn is 142 kilometers per hour, which is 88 miles an hour, so close to 90.
You want that image of the speeds?
Yes, let's bring that up. So
You know, while you're bringing up that image, I will testify that the speeds going around the 101 loop in Scottsdale are usually averaging about 90 miles an hour as well.
they are. And, there's another issue. Before we get into that speed chart, let me give you another statistic. The comment usually is, well, I'll bet they're killing each other over there in Germany with unlimited speeds. The reason we have speed limits is for safety. It's to, protect the drivers and on and on. Well, let me give you a perspective on this. First of all, you can't just simply get a license in Germany by having your grandfather or your parents teach you how to drive. I'm firmly convinced that the bad driving in this country is the result of the bad drivers teaching the next generation. I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for that, but you have to have driven in other places where there's a highly disciplined and educated group of people driving, educated by driving schools. Mm-hmm. In Germany, it's not the parents that are passing on the bad habits. They actually have to go through a 6-month school. They have to spend thousands of euros to get a license, and it's like a 6-month program. And when you're driving on their roads, I feel like an amateur often. They are extraordinarily disciplined. They know how to do the zipper thing getting on the freeway. They're courteous, and they do not hog that left lane, especially on the Autobahn, because you could get run over. And they get out of the way. As soon as they're done passing, they get over into the right lane. There's strict lane discipline. Now, let me give you some statistics. You would think that there would be a higher fatality rate in Germany because of this unlimited speed limit. There are 3.7 deaths in Germany per 100,000 on the Autobahn, compared to 12.4 deaths in the United States on our freeway systems. So almost 4 times as many deaths.
That blows me away.
So we brought a chart up here, and it's up on the screen, or was. Let's put that back up, and it shows you around the world what the speed limits are in various countries. In Japan, the highest speed is 62 miles per hour. Are we going to bring that back up, Jesse?
Yeah, it's back.
It's back. Okay. In the UK, 70 miles an hour is the highest speed limit. In Canada, it's 75. And I know this well because when I lived, by the way, that beeping is my phone. It'll go off here in just a moment. There it goes. All right. It's vibrating into the table and it's getting through the table. Who would have thought that would happen, right?
Yeah.
So, and I know this well because when I lived in Rochester, New York, we used to go to Canada, and one of the reasons was because we could do 10 miles an hour more. In the U.S. at that time, Nixon was in office, and they actually put a 55-mile-an-hour ban or speed limit in place, which is extraordinarily slow, of course. So in Canada, we were able to go 75. In France, Italy, and Russia, 81 miles an hour. And Texas, a little bit more progressive state, it looks like, 85 miles an hour. And then finally, in Germany, no limit on the Autobahns. Now, let's be clear about this. When we say no limit on the Autobahn, anything around the cities is reduced to 130 miles per or kilometers per hour, which is about 80 miles an hour. And as soon as you get out of the cities, because you have a lot of side access and, people entering and leaving the
Right.
freeway. When you get on the open stretches, that's when you get that special sign and you get an unlimited speed. And it's a pure joy to drive there, by the way, guys.
I hope I get the opportunity to do that at some point in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on a second. Where here in the U.S. do we have 85-mile-an-hour speed limits?
Oh,
Texas?
there are some places in Texas
Really?
where the highway is straight, it's long, and it's flat. And really, there's nothing to look at. So 85 miles an hour, not that bad.
And the Texans really don't like newcomers, so they want to get them out of the state as quickly as possible.
True.
I've also driven in Dallas, and I know at least in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and as you're headed on Interstate 20 or Interstate 10 over to West Texas, speed limit signs are there so you can either shoot them or throw rocks at them.
Good
Target
point.
practice.
Right.
That's right.
So it looks like we've got a YouTube question from Tesla Boomer Mama. Please, guys, love your work, but please open Twitter accounts.
We put the Twitter links for both Gruber Motors and for your account in the chat.
Oh, we did in the chat.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And so then Tesla Boomer Mama has followed up, and she said, "Oh, great, you've been following me. Such an honor. I'm following you too now, and I'll do you some publicity right away. Tell Pete that I'm German from the Black Forest."
Oh, the Black Forest region. Yeah, we're going there to see my aunt in July. She lives around Sigmaringen, which is where the Hohenzollern Castle is. Okay.
And then YouTube, Acher MMM responds to us again. He says, "Totally agree." And this is in regards to the licenses. It's expensive to get a license here. He's from the Netherlands, if you guys remember. But I got my license in the U.S. for $6 back in 1984. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Mm-hmm. Much better drivers in Europe. YouTube, Little Stinker. He says, hello from Washington, D.C. Worst metro area traffic in the country. Montana, that's right, I was going to mention that, has 85 mile per hour speed limits as well. It wasn't on our chart. And, at one point in the 60s and 70s in the last century, there was some talk about Wyoming having areas where there was unlimited speeds on their highways. And I don't know if that's still the case.
Well, I know in Montana, I used to drive up there and through Montana to visit relatives. And you can go pretty much as fast as you want if it's clear and dry and stuff. If you get pulled over, as often as not, all you have to do is pull out $5, hand it to the state trooper. He'll staple it to the ticket or paperclip it to the ticket, and you're dismissed and you're good to go.
No way. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it only takes $5.
$5.
Okay.
Now, this is not us encouraging you to speed by any means.
Or to be involved in any kind of graft or corruption like this.
That's right. Well, all we're doing is recounting some of the past experiences and rumors that we have heard.
Interesting. All right. Looks like we've got a TikTok question coming in or a comment from New York Mike 58. He says, I worked in Texas for 2 years, and if you're not doing 80, they run you off the road.
I totally agree, Mike.
And then TikTok, Wilcox 87, top speed in Wyoming is 80 miles an hour on the interstate.
Okay.
Guess I got to get out of Arizona more.
Well, now,
We're at 75 here.
yeah, but now remember, like Mark pointed out, ever since COVID and the defund police activity, the radar cops have been laying pretty low. I don't think I've seen a radar trap in a year or so. Have you?
I have seen some near my home,
Yeah.
but where I live, there's a new stretch of freeway. We call it the Loop 202, and it goes around the mountains that are south of Phoenix. It's a great bypass for downtown Phoenix, and so they're not tracking speeds for cars; they're tracking speeds for tractor trailers.
Oh, really?
And any weekend, I can drive my stretch from my home on the west side of the mountains around the south side over to Chandler, Arizona, and I will find on most weekends that they'll have at least one semi and sometimes two semis pulled over.
Pull over, yeah, yeah.
They do not like those guys going faster than the speed limit.
You know, now that you mention it, they do that in our neighborhood here too with the work trucks. You know, the weight cops come out and they
Yeah.
have different vehicles. They have a pickup truck with scales and all that. And you know, I mean, when I see that, I usually think to myself, you know, that poor schmuck that's driving that truck doesn't own the company. He doesn't own the truck, and he's about to get a license for an infraction that his employer created. You know, by overloading it or not having the right equipment on it.
Yep.
I was going to say that we've also got those radar cops right in our backyard as well, right up 7th Street. They love right after Cave Creek,
Yeah.
between Cave Creek and 7th Street. They love running around that area. It's like at least 3 or 4 times a month. I'll be driving down that area, and there'll be like 3 motorcycle cops spread out, right, all with somebody pulled over, and there'll be a cruiser over there. They seem to go through like these different waves, but they are out there. But I haven't seen much on the freeways.
You know, I must get up too early. You know, I come to work at like 6:30 in the morning, and I never see cops. Maybe that's what it is. Well, thank God, I'm going to continue to get up early then. We've got another article here, and this is a magazine, actually topspeed.com, online magazine, it looks like. And they gave 10 reasons to, or 10 considerations about EVs. And the 10th one was one of my favorites. The masthead, or the title was, Ford's ruggedness appears to hard-working, tough individuals. And then they go into how the Ford image is really the blue-collar working man demographic. I didn't know you could say that anymore. Is it politically correct to still say
I don't know.
working man? But anyway, they did. They got away with it, it looks like. And it's been part of a slogan for years, Built Ford Tough, appealing to those who want to be as tough and rugged as their vehicle. All right? So then it goes on. The F-Series has been popular among the heavy-duty minded crowd, and the F-150 Lightning continues that tradition. Now they talk about the Cybertruck. The Cybertruck does not have a clear demographic appeal, and I agree with that. I'm not quite sure what kind of a individual is going to buy a Cybertruck and what they're going to do with it. Do you guys have any ideas there?
I've got a couple ideas.
Go for
You
it.
know, somebody who I think somebody who just wants something different and doesn't really care how they look going about their business.
Okay.
You know, I mean, personally, I would say an application for, you know, dirt biking, going out. It's got tons of space. I feel like it's going to be just as much as a talking point, a talking piece, as it is a functionality piece, and I think that's pretty neat.
Okay.
If Canoe falls through, I'm gonna pre-order one.
All right.
Okay.
So what the article continues and says, the Cybertruck doesn't have a clear demographic appeal, and we'll find that out, of course, once they start releasing them. And it doesn't seem to have the same working man off-road appeal that the Ford F-Series trucks do. If someone is a hard-working, outdoor-playing, salt-of-the-earth type individual, the Ford F-150 is going to be more appealing than the strange and futuristic-looking Tesla Cybertruck.
You know, as a pickup truck fan, I have owned them on occasion, love driving them. if you're going to the Lariat or the Platinum line on the Ford F-150, or you're going up on that to the F-250 or F-350, you're not taking that thing out and mudding with it like you would with your 150. That demographic of people, I think, is a lot more similar to the type of demographic that would be good for the Cybertruck. Similarly, I know that Ram announced their the specs for their new Ram Rev vehicle, the Revolution electric pickup truck. And one of the big hits on Ford was that the F-150 Lightning, once you put a trailer on it, even if that trailer is empty, it goes into a different type of tow mode, and your 210-mile range becomes about 90 miles.
Wow.
Your 300-mile range becomes about 120 miles. That's not enough range to be able to go up and go camping or go out and go fishing and come back. People were really upset. They would get to the site where they wanted to camp, thinking they'd have great mileage, and they have to stop in town before they go camp to make sure the car is charged.
Yeah.
Now the Dodge seems to be addressing this because their extended range battery on their Ram Revolution is going to be a 500-mile battery. It's a 225 kilowatt battery, and it has the fourth generation charging that does about 110 miles in 10 minutes. Looking forward to see what that one's like. Aaron, I know he's a big pickup fan as well. If you had the chance to buy an electric vehicle, Aaron, what would you buy for an electric truck?
Well, we've been leaning towards the Ford Lightning for a while now, but the range does scare me. I got a 6.0 diesel right now, and we'd like to go up to the mountains, fly fish, tow a boat every once in a while, like up to Lake Mary. And right now, the Lightning doesn't seem like it can get that range for us. So we've been looking at that new Ram Rev. It just looks spectacular. You know, still not sold on a Cybertruck. Cybertruck is still a little. I'm traditional. I like the old look of the F-150s. So
Sure, that makes a lot of
yeah.
sense.
So I'm going to start looking hard at that Dodge. I'm hoping Ford maybe, like we were talking about earlier, maybe the Super Duties and the F-250s and F-350s have a longer range. Hopefully, maybe they'll make something to where it's going to be more appealing to get that for the activities that we do.
Sure.
You know, it occurs to me that the term destination charging really doesn't apply to an EV that you're taking into a campground, for example, or on a camping trip. You know, up in the lakes in northern Arizona, there are no destination chargers there. So yeah, I mean that.
Although you do have go to your local KOA, go to your local campground, you have 250 volt, 50 watt, 50 amp
Right.
RV plugs.
We have a couple audience members chiming in what they're going to do with their Cybertruck or what they think it'll be for.
Yeah. Okay. YouTube, Little Stinker, welcome back. He says, I think Cybertruck will be a lifestyle vehicle similar to the Jeep Wrangler crowd. All right.
That's a good point.
That does make sense. And then YouTube, Aker MM. Cybertruck will be a hard sell in Europe, he says. Try sneaking through little wiggly streets in old European cities. It reminds me of the Ice Hummer when it came out. It was probably limited where you could go in Europe.
You know, I'll bet the Hummer EV is the same thing as that first generation Ice Hummer. Good point.
And, you know, the problem in Europe is, you know, we're used to having wide open expanses here. When my father first came here, he couldn't believe the width of our streets. You know, it was just something you don't see in old, medieval Europe. And the reason is they didn't have cars, of course. They had, horse-drawn buggies at best. And they can't really change that in certain towns or certain areas because there are buildings on both sides of the road that are so close together, little cobblestone street in between.
Right.
You're not going to be able to do any kind of urban renewal there and, tear down buildings that are hundreds of years old. So they're pretty much stuck with these narrow pathways in a lot of the cities or the towns.
Well, they just don't have as much space as we do either. Especially here in Arizona, for example. We took over this whole valley and just made this gigantic city, right? Well,
Right.
much more limited in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Arizona is a great example of this. If you go back just 50 years in Arizona, most of the neighborhoods and streets that we have didn't exist. Arizona is so incredibly new. And if you go even back to the east coast of the United States, not don't even talk about Europe. 50 years, well, gee, the newest house in the neighborhood might be 50 years old. And in Europe, the newest house in the neighborhood might be 150 years old.
Very true. My grandfather actually in his basement had one of the original town walls, which was over a meter thick. And it was 900 years old. You know, in this country, anything that's 100 years old is already, antique and valuable. But, I mean, they have things that, are 900 to 1,000 or 2 years old. Completely different.
Thomas Curtis on YouTube talks about the Cybertruck as well for us. He says, I have a reservation for a Cybertruck. I want to use it for moving stuff, long-range travel, and towing. It's everything I want in a vehicle.
Very cool.
That's very cool, Thomas. I hope that New Zealand gets one of those trucks or gets the Cybertruck very early on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see once they come out what the applications are and what modifications people are going to do to those trucks. Will they be interested in lifting them, for example? Big knobby tires. Will there be off-roading versions of that truck? And will they actually be used on construction sites? Are you going to be able to take a forklift and load up a Cybertruck and not be concerned about any minor damage that you may get while that forklift is dumping that load in your truck?
Oh, I think that's a great point. It's like with the Ram Rev. It's this luxury-looking vehicle, yet they advertise that they have a path that'll go from the bed through the cab into the front, and so you can put an 18-foot piece of wood right into the vehicle.
Wow. You can haul telephone poles with it then.
That's right.
All right. It looks like Lucid got an award. They were named, or the Lucid Air, I should say. One of their vehicles was named the 2023 World Luxury Car of the Year by a prestigious 2023 World Car Awards. The magazine that actually gave this award out, it was the New York International Auto Show. And it was at that award ceremony. Oh, you've got a picture up there. Perfect. All right, tells the story. So hats off to Lucid. They're struggling a bit currently. I just saw a post this morning that here locally they're laying off 900 people. And, does anybody have any ideas what the cause of this may be? You guys read anything about this?
Personally, I think it's going to be that they've gone through, they've hired fast, they've hired a lot of quantity. They're trying to just bring in warm bodies to try to figure out their production cycle. And I think a big part of this is simply going to be that they are starting to streamline their production, get their processes in place. They have a lot of extra bloat in terms of their employee population. And now it's time to do the first cull, as it were, the people themselves who are not productive. Let them go and then start bringing in a batch of new people who can be a little more productive and get the proper training to do what they need to do. I see that happen a lot in large companies, or have seen it over time. And I think that's going to be one of the reasons that this could be happening in Lucid.
So it's a cathartic process, you think, where they're actually improving or thinning the herd in order to improve their performance.
Yeah, I definitely do, because they're still building their second fabrication plant in Casa Grande, about 100 miles of where we are in Phoenix, 100 miles south of us. And that's going to force them to hire and almost triple their employee headcount here in Arizona. Mm-hmm. So to hear that they're laying off 900 people seems counterintuitive to that.
It does. They did receive, remember, a second award, which we talked about this morning, which was the 2023 Newsweek Disruptor Award for powertrain. So this is a second award then. And Lucid is, we want all of these new EV manufacturers to make it. But in my opinion, Lucid is at the top of the list. They've got an excellent product. It looks like excellent funding is available. It looks like they have the ability to survive.
So I have some news information I'll pull up.
Sure.
So it looks like in this article, it says that the California-based company laid off about 18% of its employees, 1,300 people. So not just the 900 here in Arizona, but other places as well. And it says that Peter Rawlinson said in an email, basically, we have been reviewing and implementing several other ways to optimize our cost structure, but unfortunately, these measures alone won't help us achieve our objectives. And people, some of the employees don't seem very happy. Obviously, they just showed up to work and were essentially laid off. So, not a whole lot of explanation there, but they're saying they're adjusting their cost structure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking that would be in line with what we were talking about, streamlining costs, getting the dead weight out, as it were, from the employee population. 18% is a lot of people, though. I'm sure that there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt going on at Lucid right now.
One other thing, real quick, it says the layoffs happened despite the company exceeding expected vehicle production at its Arizona facilities in 2022. So, even though they're exceeding expectations, there's still something going on money-wise.
Yeah, sounds like the CFO might have gotten hold of the ear of Peter Rawlinson and convinced him to do some things.
Looks like we got a couple more questions coming in. Facebook. Welcome, Facebook. Aruvas S. Mile. Good morning. My name is Tosktek. All right.
Well, good morning and welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us. Also, Wilcox87 came to us on TikTok with a great question, I think. Over the next 5 years, what do you think will be the next major innovation in EV technology? I'll let you go first.
All right. Well, battery ranks at the top of the list. As we've been saying now, the improvements in battery technology, energy density, chemistry, is all exponential at this point, and a lot of things are being resolved with this kind of effort. It's conceivable that we will have much smaller batteries, much safer batteries, no thermal events, and more power to pack into and longer range distances for these vehicles. The second major milestone over the next 5 years, I believe, is going to be getting rid of plug-in charge cables for cars. As the solar cars begin to become more viable, the charging will take place by just simply leaving the car outside with some sunshine.
I think those are great points. And for the times when you might want to plug in, I think it's going to continue to be an option, but it will become optional. And the charging infrastructure that allows people to charge cars at anywhere from 1 megawatt to 2 megawatts, I think is just around the corner and is going to be there.
And some of the technologies we've heard about, in fact, we talked about it in one of the last podcasts. What was it like? Ranges now up to 900 or 1,000 miles in a given weight and space battery in a car.
Yeah, I mean, even the Ram Revolution, when they announced these ranges, these are ridiculously high ranges compared to what else is in the EV space. Only Lucid seems to have a comparable car with their Lucid Air Dream Edition at nearly 600 miles. The announcement also had an announcement that wasn't picked up by a lot of the press. Ram Revolution is going to have an XR model coming, and the XR, of course, stands for extended range. So I'm thinking, well, gee, if 500 miles isn't extended range, what is extended range?
And now, of course, we have a tipping point because there aren't too many passenger vehicles that can go over 400 miles range,
right,
without a fill-up. So if we have EVs that are doing over twice that, that's going to change some things as well.
Right. Van Goat Wagon is joining us again on TikTok. Good morning, Van Goat. He asks, have you folks been to an EV F1 race, and are you familiar with their setups?
We were actually asked that yesterday, if you remember. And,
I do.
My personal opinion is there's certain things that are, there's an expectation that comes along with it, and it's that sound of the F1 racing that is part of the appeal, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so as well. I'm not familiar with their setups as of yet, but as I had mentioned yesterday on the podcast, and I don't know if you were watching, Van Goat, I'm really intrigued to be able to find that on TV and start watching that. That's something that I simply haven't been able to find yet on the television to be able to watch. So I think I'm ready to the point where I'm gonna end up going to YouTube and watching some of the streaming channels or something like that, because I'm really interested to see more about what goes on there.
Formula E.
Formula
So
E,
we'll
yeah.
do some research on that. And we'll get back Van Goat.
Yeah.
Danny Ames from YouTube also gives a good comment to us. Cybertruck, have a reservation. The appeal is it's an EV fanned by Tesla. I'll use it to transport my son who is handicapped and his electric dual motor ATV Triad. I own a Y currently. It's my 7th EV car.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of EVs there.
Very huge respect for you, Danny. That's very cool.
We got a couple more coming in. Give me just 1 second here.
Okay.
They just popped up. So I'm getting those typed up
Just so
now.
you know, we are at 56 minutes also.
Okay.
Great.
It looks like Aker MMM. He says he's considering buying a 5-year-old Tesla Model S, but I might as well ask you if 5 to 10 years from now we can buy an Amprius-style replacement battery for it from Gruber. Well, we don't know that yet. Amprius just announced their product, and they're in construction mode right now, so I don't know how quick they're going to actually be releasing product and bringing it to market. But in the meantime, right after the Amprius announcement, there was an announcement of an aqueous battery, which is a water-based battery using polymer instead of cobalt and nickel in the cathode and anode. Right now, the battery technology is improving so quickly, it's tough to predict what's going to be available in 5 years.
While we have not entered into any battery design and manufacturing agreements with engineering companies yet, I know we had a lot of interest from a company that was making graphene solid-state batteries, and I regret that did not work out. It was had to do with the geometry of the batteries that they had already made and were trying to put into Model S's versus the geometry of the Model S battery pack. I know if the right opportunity comes along, though, we would love to be able to go into the battery business like that. I just don't know that we're going to have something in the next 5 to 10 years.
From YouTube, Trucker Alistair, welcome back, Trucker. He says, "Hey, Matrix agents, again in Cafe in Germany." This is actually Tuscany, but yeah, we will be releasing that video at some point describing what the sunglasses are all about. In the meantime, we're just enjoying all the attention we're getting about the sunglasses.
Absolutely. You know, we are a part of the Matrix.
And Pete,
Yep.
I guess, and Mark too. When there's all these advancing battery technologies, is it always the cheapest and easiest to scale that's going to take over?
I think there are a number of parameters, and it may not just be the financial incentives for a particular chemistry or style.
There's just so many now, you know.
There are. It's hard to keep track. Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily going to be the cheapest and easiest. I think it's going to be the one that ends up with the strongest vision, business plan, and marketing. That may become the cheapest and easiest battery, but not necessarily. If we look back 30 years to the Betamax versus the VHS, Betamax was far better, but not necessarily cheaper or easier. VHS had a better marketing plan, and so in the 80s, the VHS ended up winning out. Sony, acquiesced to the VHS standard when they put out their own VHS tape player. I think the same type of thing is going to play out in the battery space. There's going to be a lot more, in my opinion, types of batteries, whether it's sodium ion, potassium ion, aqueous, solid state, various types of solid state, other variations of lithium that are going to come out before there's a consolidation.
Graphene.
Graphene. But there will eventually, I think, be a consolidation of some sort.
And, I'm surprised you didn't mention it, Jesse, but the whole battery concept is energy storage. And if we can eliminate the need for energy storage by creating an energy source, we no longer need batteries. Now, are you going to talk about fusion at this point?
Yeah, I mean, fusion. The question that was posed was 5 to 10 years. I think it's possible for fusion in that time frame. Probably more 10 to 20 years. And I know that's what everybody always says. We're 10 to 20 years away from fusion, but we've never had an ignition until a few months ago. So
Yeah.
I think that is
Right.
actually the future. I think there's so much money being put into still lithium and graphene and all these other things, though. And then out of nowhere, you have seemingly out of nowhere Amprius, getting pushed by Sandy Monroe, which is massive potential. And then we have solar increasing still as well. There's just so many different things. I'm wondering, really, is it the cheapest and easiest to scale? Is that what's going to take off, or what are people going to just choose as their source, right?
Hmm. I'd hate to be a manufacturer in this day and age because with this level of disruption and change, it has to be painful for them to build a production line, get all of the equipment in place, the infrastructure in place, and then have the technology change overnight to something else and start that process all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where does that all investment go?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think the point you made, Pete, about the batteries is possibly the most salient point of this whole conversation. Are we going to really even need batteries that are as large and as heavy and as as hard to manufacture as we have today, if the solar cells end up being able to produce even like they do today and be effective on cars, or is something other than batteries, like additional solar cells, going to be the thing, the wave of the future? We don't know.
If it plays itself out, of course. Right now, our goal with solar or photovoltaics is to get it to a point where it can charge the battery completely without having to plug in.
Right.
But if those photovoltaics become so advanced that they're actually the power source online, then everything changes. You no longer have to store that energy because it will propel the vehicle. Now, you won't be able to drive at night is the only problem, unless we figure out some method of harvesting energy when the sun is not shining.
Yes, definitely. Gasp 421 on TikTok asks us, do you guys think hydrogen fuel cell cars have a future?
No.
I agree.
Pretty quick and blunt.
Actually, I agree. I saw something online. We don't have time to get into it in depth, about hydrogen and hydrogen fuel cell cars. Hydrogen that leaks into the atmosphere ends up combining with another chemical that's in the atmosphere, naturally occurring. In that particular chemical binds to methane right now. It's possible with the scaling of hydrogen and hydrogen fuel cell cars and the additional leakage of hydrogen that you'll have in the environment, that hydrogen fuel cell cars could end up being more harmful to the environment than gasoline.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that in an earlier podcast. We'll have to do some research and revisit that. YouTube, Aker MMM says or asks, would Tesla block third-party batteries? That question actually speaks to what I know about Tesla. They are not the kind of company that are going to be adversarial when it comes to what most competitors consider a competitive effort, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't think that Tesla is going to block anything. I think that their culture and their overriding mission is to truly move this planet in a different direction. And if that means a loss of revenue to some extent because there are third parties or competitors making batteries like theirs, I have never found Tesla to be concerned about that. So it won't be Tesla. Now, I can't speak to the other EV manufacturers that are, trying to carve some revenue and some margin to survive.
Right.
But I don't think in Tesla's case this is going to be a concern. I think they embrace technologies. I think they support competition. And they subscribe to Nikola Tesla's original culture, which was share your patents. Don't become a patent troll like Thomas Alva Edison.
Absolutely. Van Goat Wagon has a follow-up on TikTok as well for us. I'd love to see Elon put a rocket into space using only EV power. Yes, me too.
Me too.
Yep. I think the day is going to happen when that does happen exactly as well.
Well, that would be more along the lines of ionized flight, right? There's no fuel with that. It's just ions.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Awesome.
Trucker Alistair is back again. In England, they have a lake and functions as a battery when wind and solar are produced.
Even here in Arizona, one of our local power companies is doing something just about like that. Salt River Project is looking at when taking and creating a second reservoir that's about 600 feet elevation wise above one of their large reservoirs that feeds the Phoenix market. When they have excess power, they're going to use that in pumps to pump the water up to the upper reservoir. And when they have a need for more power, they're going to let gravity bring that water back down. They've already determined it. It's going to be nearly 80% efficient.
So it's like a man-made hydroelectric system.
Yes.
Interesting. All right. I have one quick thing for you guys here. It looks like Gigafactory Tesla, or a Tesla Gigafactory Texas employee headcount tripled in 2022. That's pretty substantial. You know, my hat's off to any of these companies that are growing rapidly like this. You know, I mean, we have a couple hundred employees here, and with subcontractors, probably more like 300 to 500. And it's very difficult to keep it all together because you have so many different cultures that are blending and merging, and different directions and different backgrounds and all that. And rapid growth is very difficult to manage. So my hat's off to Tesla for being able to survive and continue to operate with this much growth.
I agree with you totally. Hats off to them. When a company grows as rapidly as that, it's difficult. And frankly, that's what you see with things like Lucid when they announce the layoffs of several hundred people. You grow so rapidly, you end up bringing in people that just aren't working out.
Absolutely. So I've got a article here, and I know we're running out of time here, but let me just grab a few more here, Jesse. And this is from a longtime Tesla bull. Bull, of course, in the stock market means somebody that is forward-thinking and thinks that the stock market is going to go up. And a bear is going to short stock because they think it's going down. But this is an investor, ARK Investments, and he predicts that Tesla will reduce vehicle costs by 50% in the next 5 years. So you kind of have to play this out. If this is true, what sort of an impact will that have? And of course, we're always talking about, is Tesla stock a good investment? And we're not investment advisors, but I certainly am enjoying the stock and where it's been going. So that was quite a remarkable prediction by this investor. It looks like we have a Danish customer or audience member. Am I reading that right? Beyond Danish Genome Institute? He's asking, are there companies similar to yours in Europe? Actually, there are. There are some excellent companies that work on Tesla Roadsters now. Sometimes they're private individuals that are working out of their homes. We had a call a couple days ago from a Parisian customer that has a Roadster that is bricked. It's at the service center. The only option is battery replacement, and he was looking for a company like us that could actually repair the battery rather than spend $40,000 to replace it. And I referred him to a German customer. So any of you that need this type of work with Roadsters, feel free to contact us, and we will put you in touch with some of the people there that are capable of doing the type of work that we do here, which is recovering battery packs and putting Roadsters back on the roads.
Now, we just have a couple last comments and questions. First, Van Goat says, Jesse knows his stuff. Jesse is one of our genius residents. So, yes, he definitely does.
Thank you, Van Gogh. Appreciate that.
Follow-up from the Beyond Danish Genome Institute. Any update on the graphene battery experiment?
Well, the update there is we've scrubbed the project for now. The goal originally was they came to us for a test mule Model S. Would we be willing to provide one and some of the engineering expertise to insert their batteries, their graphene batteries, into a Tesla battery pack to replicate its function and then do some testing? What we ran into were some geometry problems. The graphene pouches were too large to fit in the pack, and we were unable to cost-effectively come up with a solution or a workaround. So at this point, our graphene experiment is stalled. And of course, now there's so many new battery technologies coming along that this may no longer be as relevant as it was 6 or 9 months ago when we were first involved in this project. But again, there are some definite advantages with even graphene battery technology. It doesn't have the thermal events that a
Right.
lithium-ion battery pack has. Actually the charge times were shorter, and I think the energy density was even greater with this
Yes, I think it
graphene
was.
technology versus the traditional lithium-ion at the time. All right. Well, it looks like we're wrapping at this point. Again, join us Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Now Pacific Standard Time as well is our normal EV podcast. And then Wednesdays at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we have our special Tesla Roadster podcast. We have a guest this next Wednesday. We finally dialed in our ability to handle a Zoom guest coming in. And going forward now, we'll have more guests as a result of that. Jameson Cummings will be with us. He is the first Tesla Roadster technician. He is full of stories, and he can answer questions, and he'll give you the history and the evolution of Tesla during the Roadster days.
We have one more real quick here on YouTube from Danny. Says, been following you all from the start on YouTube. Love what you guys do. Really good EV stories of amazing repairs and preservation. It says, Pete's research and style of storytelling on Tesla is meritorious.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you, Danny. Pete is absolutely a master storyteller. I would encourage anybody who wants to see and read some more of the stories that Pete has to go to the Gruber Motors website. He is the author of many of the Roadster stories that get told. Our Roadster owners always have a story to tell, and Pete is a real master at putting those stories down and getting them onto that site.
And as flattering as all that praise is, the Roadsters typically come with stories. They're not your average car, so it's not too hard to give a voice to that, to the history of that Roadster. But again, as Mark pointed out, on our website, there is a gallery button at the top. And we featured a number of Roadsters that have come through the shop with an interesting story. Speaking of that, I'll give a plug to another story that's coming up. We've been working all week on a listing now for 2 Founder Series cars that are going to be sold. And some history for the non-Tesla people. In the Tesla world, you had engineering prototypes. These were cars that were basically cobbled together to see if you had a proof of concept. Then they had validation prototypes, which was a car that you could actually drive, take a laptop with you, and test your theories as to whether this was a viable product. Those 2 level of cars usually do not get sold because they shake them to death. They drive them in a lake, and it's not the kind of car that an owner wants to own. Well, during the day, Tesla cut some corners there, and they actually released some of these types of cars. So in the owner base currently, there are some validation prototypes, and I know of at least 1 engineering prototype. Then later came the Signature Series cars, which were the limited edition runs. In the Roadster world, they had 100 in the United States. So if you owned anywhere from Signature 1 to 100, you had a unique car with a carbon fiber plaque between the seats. And in Europe, they actually expanded that program to 250 Signature cars. So that immediately creates some stories. And if you go to that gallery section, you'll see a number of those types of cars. Now, the 2 cars that I began to tell you about are Founder Series cars, and they were sandwiched in between the Signature cars and the validation prototypes. And these were cars that were reserved for the VIPs. That would typically, back in the day, be a financial investor, some venture capitalist that may have made a major contribution to the company and expected something in return, and they would have given him a Founder Series car. To give you an example, Elon has Founder Series VIN number 1. Martin Eberhard has Founder Series VIN number 2. And this particular car that we're selling next week is Founder Series VIN number 3, Tesla Roadster. And what's so unique about this car is that you can see some of the imperfections in the car. Like in the front hood vane, there is some carbon fiber weave that's showing through the paint. We suggested to the customer originally, do you want us to fix that? He says, no, that's one of the artifacts. That's what makes it so valuable.
Sure.
And we caught on to that. It's kind of like that penny that has the wrong date stamped on it that is now worth $2 million. My wife was telling me about one. It did
Yeah.
go that route,
You
right?
find it in your pocket and you're a millionaire.
Right. So that's the first car that's being sold is a Founder Series with some of these early imperfections that are left on the car. Nothing major that prevents it from driving, of course. The second car is another Founders Series Model S. Same customer owns it. He had the foresight to ask for the same color and the same VIN in both his Model S and his Roadster. And these will be sold as a pair. The imperfections on the Model S are panel gaps. And again, we asked the customer, do you want us to fix some of this stuff? He says, no. When we took possession of the car, we noted the panel gaps in the doors and the trunk. And we told Tesla, and they said, we have not perfected our processes yet. We don't know how to fix that yet. So he left it that way, and this car will be sold. It will be, of course, less perfect than another car next to it with a high VIN.
Sure.
But that's what's going to, we feel, be part of the value, as does he. So these two cars will show up on our Roadster matchmaking site, and it's the first time that we've put a non-Roadster on that site. We're going to be branching off into the other Tesla vehicles eventually. So keep an eye out for that. And those of you that are into collecting, this is going to be a rare opportunity to get something that may never be repeated again. Both Founders VIN number 3s.
Well, with that, boy, what a way to end, Pete. Thank you guys again for joining us today in the Gruber Morning Show podcast. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 10 o'clock a.m. Mountain Standard Time.
Thank you.